Lovepreneur world. I'm Lila Star, and our special guest today is the wonderful, fabulous Lily Lucia. And Lovepreneur world is a world that works for everyone. So we interview humans, avatars like you, so we can help each other understand where spirituality and business meet and how we can together create a culture and a world that truly thrives. So Lily Lucia is a dear friend of mine. Thank you for being with us today, Lily.
Thank you so much for having me.
She is a sacred sexuality empowerment coach. She teaches Tantra as well as yoga, ballroom dancing. You work with many clients in the LA area and help people understand true divine femininity and also being a powerful, I'd say badass business boss where sacred sexuality and business and spirituality all merge. So Lily and I did a retreat in Costa Rica about a couple years ago called Dance Camp. It was a 28-day full moon cycle, authentic embodiment retreat. And Lily got us out of bed at 6 a.m. every morning in the Costa Rica heat to do our sexy boot camp dance. And then she also would help us understand and explore and really feel beautiful in our bodies throughout the day with modern dance and teaching us ballet and how to just really express our higher selves. So your company, Unstoppable Goddess, share with us what this is about, what you're bringing to the world, what your message is, your gift.
Awesome. Well, first, I just want to thank everyone for joining and being on, and your time and your energy, as well as Lila for having me and creating this space. So Unstoppable Goddess to me is a mixture of both the feminine and the masculine. And so a little bit of my backstory is when I was in high school, I had a very traumatic sexual assault. I was raped. And so from there, I got really dark and felt really like the world was against me and I was not positive. I was really walled up. And then from there, in my own exploration, when I was about 20, something happened and I just got like the download, like sex is not a joke from God. And, you could have one experience that could leave you tainted for the rest of your life. And, I am sacred. And so from there, I started my Tantra kind of journey at 20. So it's about sacred sexuality, which I just feel is not really stated very well. And we have so much, we are sexual beings. We are all created from the moment of orgasm from our father inside our mother. So, and we just don't have space. So my whole thing is, how do we merge spirituality and sexuality together? So we have true, authentic intimacy and love making, and it's a healing process full of ecstasy and bliss and lots of yumminess, but that we walk away feeling more open, closer to ourselves and closer to our partners. So that's really important for me. And then the other part is the unstoppable. So I feel like I can only be in my feminine, especially in this age as a woman, so much, because we still always have to be able to provide for ourselves, which is a really beautiful offering. And so it's that other part of like, okay, and how do I go out into the world and, mindset and really believe in myself and love myself and find that kind of like, okay, this is my gift and my offering. I also was very hard on myself growing up mentally, and I was just really my own worst enemy. So the other part is really offering how to become your own best friend and love yourself and be able to create what you want in the world. So I want you to have gushy, super amazing, intimate times with the sacred sexuality that really bring you into, really feeling seen with your lover and seeing your other lover, right? So intimacy is into me, you see. And when we have that and we have love and we have those mergings, the collective and the personal really begins to heal. And I think this is a big dialogue that we're having in the world right now, just because we still, have so much shame and there's so much sexual assault that happens both to women and men. And this is something that we need to bring into the light and find a new way. So that is like a very brief kind of, discussion of what Unstoppable Goddess is.
And what kind of clients come to you for support? What are some of maybe the demographics, or what are sort of the problems, or what do some of your clients want from life when they come to you?
Right. So I would say that, a lot of people just like me have a yearning to be in partnership to where they feel like they're actually making love to their partner. And, I think we all personally have so many walls up, and we just don't have a discussion in our society. It's either kind of porn or puritanism. So I'm here to kind of offer a space of like, this sexuality is our life force. It's what's happening. It's how we continue to grow as a species, right? And so my clients, I would say, are all over the board, really beautiful women. And I would also say in our society, because of the way that we've moved, a lot of people, particularly myself, almost had some shame and guilt around wanting to own my femininity, as if it was me buying into the patriarchy or buying into society stuff. And so women, even though they may look like, I felt like I was this very much, like I looked on the external like feminine, but as far as like internally, I felt really blocked and pulled away from that. So, my clients range just from like, men do come to me as well because they just want guidance, and like I think a lot more of us do want love to be a sexuality in our life. So my clients really, range all over the place, from young girls who I see in college that are like, talking about experiences with men and like how do they navigate that, and how do they walk away from college and not just have horrible experiences, as well as older women that are like, I've been divorced and all this stuff, but I still want to be ravished by men, and figuring that out, and trying to create a sacred container to do that, so I hold space for both men and women to come and like allow them to explore their sexuality and spirituality in ways they may have never even knew were possible, as well as own their confidence. So I help a lot of women step into that space of like, this is what I believe. And it is scary because when you are leading it all, you will always get feedback, and a lot of it isn't always positive. So also teaching women how to own their power and their voice, and, be proud of who they are. So I would, that's a very, once again, very brief, but those are kind of the people that are geared towards spirituality, but, just want some guidance on this.
Cool. Something that feels important to uncover more is you speak about, being a powerful feminine leader, I'd say, in terms of being unstoppable. And how do you gather that sort of unstoppable energy where you're going out into the world and making things happen, but then still maintaining like your femininity or your authentic feminine? I feel like a lot of times I didn't necessarily want to go the route of business that I think more of a patriarch had laid out for us.
Right.
But then how do women rise to share their gifts? And what does that more sacred feminine aspect of the business look like? And how do you maintain that sacred feminine as you're like rocking it and getting out there and really being like a boss babe? I mean, you have this sass, people adore you, you have this charismatic energy.
It's really important to find spiritual practice that every day make you embodied. So I even work on that now. So you really need to connect to you. So first and foremost, I think embracing and embodying yourself, woman or man. We sometimes spend so much time in the head and out of like, I should be doing this and running towards these things. And it's all energy that's almost outside of myself, right? And like, sometimes you can also really be, just yang, I need to go. And like, instead of like really falling into the here and now, right? So like doing a meditation to where you fall into the here and now, like you sit into your womb, into your ovaries, and you feel that energy. You feel yourself on Mother Earth. You feel into your belly, feel into your breast, you feel into that fullness of who you are. And from there you offer. And I think when you kind of also let yourself become a little bit more receptive, one of the things I would say is a little bit different is I'm not a big pusher. So I don't push people and say, if you don't do this, if you don't come and get your sexuality healed right now, you are, losing out on the joy of your life. And I don't want to pressure, right? I could say that like, you're letting this trauma and like pressure people into like feeling that they need to heal this, instead of like, here's an offering. And if you feel called to this, and if it feels good, come to me. So a lot of my clients actually will see my stuff, and then from there, they will actually inquire with me, like, I just have to work with you. I know I do, like the way you are. And part of that is because I offer safe space for people to feel that they can come and be intimate and open, and that I'm not going to judge them, right? So it's a little bit more almost of a mothering quality. So yes, I have goals and I have those things that I want, but it doesn't come from a push in this and you're wrong. And, like that kind of more fierce salesman. It comes from more of a place of like invitation of like what I almost feel like is more feminine, because it's a little bit more of a receptive energy. It doesn't mean I'm less powerful or that, my goals and my, achievements don't mean as much to me. It just means that you really allow yourself to embody, and you don't, also buy into the paradigm that I have to be someone different. So for me personally, that was something I had to move into, and you really have to find your own truth. So my own truth was I never wanted to pressure somebody and bring up all their shadow and their pain points and make them feel bad and that they were never going to be healed or all these things if they didn't do it now, right? So that's, part of what I would say is like being more in your feminine is giving yourself time to make sure you keep connecting to yourself, to what is your truth, and also being nourished, so what does that mean? That's probably like a lot of touch for both, feminine and masculine, a lot of like really bringing down, a lot of, nourishing yourself, like a lot of those things. It's also going to help with longevity because you're not going to get burnt out, and also when you're really in that space, right, when we're really embodied, that's also when your third eye can open, which is intuition. So all of a sudden you can also get those intuitive nudges of like, oh, I should, offer this person and do these things. So that's what I would say.
Beautiful. Yeah. I think there's something really powerful about your fierceness, but also your balance of femininity. And I want maybe the viewers to hear, what does your day look like in terms of how do you, in the scope of being like in LA where things are like hot and fiery and there's a lot of ego, and how do you navigate the day in a way that you stay in your flow? And
Right. So in the mornings, I definitely get up, and I'm a really nature-based, and I live in the hills. So I normally go for a walk and I sit down and I really intentionally align vibrationally to the energy I want to put out. So I just go into prayer and meditation for a while and really sink into me, right? And feel that energy and feel breath and feel love, feel that openness, and set the intention of what I want for the day. And then try to, kind of maintain that flow of that, and not all of a sudden get into like, I'm not enough, right? So sometimes I notice I can do that switch, or I can do a switch into like egoic goals. So I notice if all of a sudden it's like, it's up here and it's like, I need to do X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, does this have heart? Is this my heart that is telling me to do this? Or is this ego because I think that having a Mercedes is going to do X, Y, and Z, when really I'd rather have a good time and be in a Volvo. Those things are not exclusive, but I just need to be really careful on, where is my intention, right? Like, so that's what I do. And then during the day, create content. I work with my clients. I go and dance and do other things. And I always explore like so my two real paths in this lifetime right now are sacred sexuality and empowerment. So I'm really diving into discussion on what does that look like, and always learning more. So there's always more to learn on like, what really are all the different ways that empowerment comes through. So it's physical, it's mental, emotional, spiritual, like, how could I create a better thing? So I'm always continuing to learn, as well as whenever I feel really frazzled, I invite myself 5 to 10 minutes minimum, or however long I need to come back and to center myself. Because as soon as I get into frazzled energy, or I get really egoic and stuff, it's all outside. None of it's going to nourish me nor the whole, so I really invite myself to come back, and invite myself to really live, like I said, an embody and embracing myself lifestyle. And when I do that, I just melt into myself, and I tend to open, and just everything has so much more substance, and there's so much I see in the now compared to like when I have the goggles on of ego, which can distort reality for myself.
love it. I love it. I love the way you said too, that you just check in. Is this coming from heart? Where is this idea coming from? And wow, yeah, I love everything that you've been saying right now. I'm like, this is so good.
Thank
I
you.
want to weave in, we were weaving in business and spirituality. Could we weave in like sexuality and
Yeah.
business? And how, I mean, even if I didn't have a partner, or I was like wanting to pursue a tantric path, why would I want to have this holistic sexuality practice or awareness to even to inform like my business or how I relate in the world? Why is it, help us understand why it's important, or maybe something we want to tune into more?
Yeah, well, I would say that this happens for both sexes, the masculine and the feminine. We really desire intimacy, right? So it's not actual just the sexual moment, which of course we all desire that orgasmic, but we really desire to be seen, to be touched, to have that amazing energy, right? So we're all just energy. So what I feel like is when you tap more into that sacred sexuality and loving your sexual energy, you have a place of reverence. So it isn't like, oh, I'm going to be sexual and it's going to go into this kind of negative or dark light, which was a lot of my upbringing, was, walk of shame, different things like that, really doing experiences towards like, so that's not aligned with what I want. I'm letting people into the most intimate part of myself. So I think that a lot of it is just allowing ourselves to be in the now, to be in the moment, to see ourselves for the true divinity we are right now, and open up to the magic and the mystery and the perfection. And then, if you have that reflected even in a partner that is platonic, is really beautiful, because it brings substance and depth and meaning to your life, right? Like, connection to others is the purpose. So what I found in my own personal life was, one of the reasons I really wanted to heal wasn't just because I wanted my sex life to be really beautiful, but because I found the block that I had put around my heart from that experience was in all areas of my life. And so I really didn't feel seen or loved or touched or nourished in most spaces, regardless. So when you start to interweave some of that into your life, you'll also notice that in your business, you might be more able to feel a little more open and vulnerable and, intimate with your clients in a really healthy way, to where they actually feel like on a deeper level, they get to know you. You might find that in your business, you're able to have a little bit more depth of the offering you give in a bigger open space. I also believe that you will truly live a more fulfilled life in every moment. So, right, like, I don't have a partner right now, but even every day having reverence for myself and, placing my hand on my womb and my heart and connecting to myself as that divine feminine and offering that to the world, it helps heal, my roommates or my best friends or people I don't know, just having that essence. The same when I see other women do that, or, having the man show up as a divine masculine. I may even just only see them on the internet, but even just that, that energy helps heal me, just to be like, cool, we're all in this really beautiful frequency. So I'd say that, your business will also, you'll have depth, right? So easy in business. And we see this, I live in Hollywood, right? And so part of the reason I was checking between heart and ego is because you see it so often that people just go into ego, right? And so then they end up in these like successful dream lives, and yet they're left so unsatisfied, almost to the point to where a lot of them, right, go to drugs and kill themselves, and just, and what is that misalignment? Because there's a misalignment because it's not coming from this, right? This is all sinful and shut out and contracted and not nourished. So having even that little bit of time to do partner yoga with your partner in the morning, or feeling really intimate and seen, and just even, it's also energetically on a what I believe intimacy and sensuality, and I'm really big on sensuality, is the difference is on sensuality, I think you start to open. So it's your ethereal body, it's your energetic, it's going to help open your heart and feel, in our every dense day world, we can feel just really only this physical, and sensuality and intimacy start to open up the ethereal body, so we can start to open. So I think it helps you feel more fulfilled on a day-to-day basis, which I think fulfillment every day is what's really important, regardless of big goals.
I love this. It's beautiful just to hear, because you do put yourself out there. I mean, you teach tantra and pole dancing and these super, naked yoga, and yet when I hear your message, the foundation of it is connection, and it's
right, and
and it's
reverence
not
for
as much
self.
that outward. It's more this inner connection that you're helping people.
Right. So like my naked yoga is, we don't even get undressed until we are on the mat. And then we take a few breaths all together clothed. And then I say, we're going to do a sacred unveiling of our bodies now. And it's really about being naked with yourself and learning to love your naked body and all of your nakedness. So, in our society, it's like, put on a clothes, so you have this and have that. And it's really just like, how could you be completely okay if everything was taken away and all you had was you? Like, are you okay with that? And same with like the pole dancing is like more about, you put your hands on yourself and things like that. And so many women that I would teach would literally just make disgusted faces like, oh my God, and just be like grossed out by themselves. And that would break my heart, because we're in a dark room, lighting, women only, super safe space. And that is self-love in motion, or self-hate in motion. So that's a thing for me, is like, how do you enjoy and have fun in yourself? And like, all of this is an extension. So self-love is not something where it's like, I love myself, and journal about how you love yourself and kind of live that. It is self-love is an action. Self-love is hitting those triggers. And I'm not saying, if pole dancing isn't your thing and it doesn't feel sacred and reverence for you, beautiful. But if you feel like you want to do that, but you have this fear of like, I hate myself and my body's disgusting, then I offer you a sacred space to work through that. One thing I've also been really looking at is, women have always, back in the day, a lot of tribes always had women go off after dinner and learn dance with women only to perform for their significant lovers. So I think that that's, kind of an offering that I want to kind of bring back a little bit. Like, cool, it's a women only environment. Allow yourself to connect to that deep femininity. And then, just only offer it in a sacred container to the world that feels good to you. Like, nobody needs to know. So that's, everything does for me have a really deep purpose, whether it's like super playful and fun, or if it's like a really deep, super tantric moment of like spiritual practice.
Yeah, thank you. That was, wow. I mean, that was what was so magical, I think, for us, of having you come to dance camp as like this super badass, very well trained. You've been dancing your whole life, professional dancer, but you brought dance to us in a way that was safe, that we weren't judging our bodies, and we were, in front of mirrors all day. And you brought your priestess bringing us these things, and it was completely different. And just seeing how you access these states, but then in a way that's really sacred. Just really appreciate you for that kind of merging and being able to share that gift.
Of course. Thank you. Yeah. It's just one of those things to where you have to, when you start to lean into what you feel like is your truth and you allow that to be birthed, I used to even teach Zumba, and I would have women cry at the end because it was a woman's only thing. And I would have a circle up at the end. And then I would be like, you see all the women here in this room? These are your sisters. And I love and support you. And we all do. And women would cry because in the normal world, they do never feel that. Right. So even like in a Zumba class, I was super silly, and we have that opportunity to make any moment have a little more depth. And I just feel like so many people are starving, as I was, and still, have to remember to keep feeding myself or else I begin to starve again, so it's a continual nourishment. So I appreciate you, Lila, and it's, really fun offering. I'm really blessed that this was given to me as my gift to the world, and it's a cool, fun, sacred thing. And it's really beautiful to see women, get into their hips and find some freedom and love it. And, and then they get to show to their lover. And of course their lover is like, yeah, eating this up. This is fun. Not hearing about you, how you hate your body, but how you're enjoying it. And, so it's a really cool, beautiful thing. So it's multidimensional for sure, but it's very sacred. And it's a lot of heart. So my company is all about love. So my sacred sexuality is really about having love making come back into being, having, it be an intimate, truly healing practice, helping both the man and the woman fall into more reverence and sacred for themselves.
Oh, thank you so much. So much juicy wisdom coming from you today. We're really very blessed. I'd like to ask you about your course and share with us a little bit about who this is for, or what we might receive from it, why we might want to take your course, and what it's about.
Awesome.
And what's the name of it?
My course is called Tantra 101, Spirituality plus means Sexuality for the Beginners. So I honestly just did what I needed 10 years ago. So 10 years ago when I was looking for Tantra, there are books at the bookstore that were really cool that I liked. But as far as like offerings online and kind of like helped, I really had no idea, nor did I feel there was a resource to help me learn how to heal a sexual trauma in a spiritual way and bring spirituality into my sexuality. I really understood clinically at that point, like I'd done a lot of therapy, but as far as like actually the merging of the spirituality, I had no idea. So this course is really for people that want to begin the first thing. So it's a really big course just because I couldn't not. So it's like talks about your own just personal history and sexuality, what beliefs you have, what walls you have, all those different things, because we don't even talk really about any of this in our world too much. So it's like, what did your parents say about sexuality? What do you believe about sexuality? What do you think your hangups are? And, so then we go through that, and then we go through the second stage of energetics. So we talk about different ways that the energy flows through the body. So like Kundalini and Shakti and Shiva and kind of different, the 18 gateways of like Shakti in the body, and just hanging out, doing breath meditations, doing womb meditations. So the second part is really connecting to your body in a new spiritual kind of way. And then it goes into like, self-pleasure practices and, breath massage and things like that. And then we move into partner practices. So it just is like the basics of energetics. You can start with your partner. So what you can do in White Tantra is more of like the yoga and the meditation. So it brings in those practices, as well as it starts to bring in some of the red. So, the energy of like the man. So the energy flows, the sexual circuit energy for a man and a woman is it goes down through his crown chakra, all the way down through all of his chakras, down through his lingam or penis. And then engagement, right? It penetrates through us and goes up through our root chakra, and it shoots up through us, out through ours, and it goes back around. So we just talk about things like that. We talk about exercises you can do. We talk about, heart to heart breathing. And then from there, we just talk about what does that mean for a daily practice to help you stay in that? And what does it mean for you to own that goddess outside in the everyday world, not just in your sexuality? So it's a 6-week course. And it's one that I really feel like I gave so much that it's one you can use for years and continue to be like, oh, this partner showed up. I would love to try that thing back there that I saw. Or, you know what I mean? Might take you, it's a lifetime practice every day of tapping into your Kundalini and tapping into your breath work and your meditation, and different triggers and different moments might come up. And so that's what the Tantra 101 course is it's not advanced, finding God through sex, but it is like the basics of this, foundation that I really think is covering everything to help you start that path.
I love it. I definitely want to take it. Thank you,
Yeah.
Lily. I'm so excited for it. What would you suggest to us right now? What would be a simple practice that anyone can begin in this moment to move us towards that like sexual, sensual, awakened being in all moments?
So I would say, taking a few moments to first just sit down and ground, just like we would in yoga, to really allow yourself to let go of the everyday world, find your breath. Place your hand on your heart, one on your lower, root chakra, second chakra, connecting to that energy, taking some few deep breaths. And then I would do some circles, one way. Yeah. Circles the other way, and then come back to sitting. And what I would also say is you can either be in front of a mirror or in front of a partner. You'd place your hands on each other's legs or just on your own, taking a few breaths there. So either looking into a mirror in your eyes or looking into your partner's eyes. So you're doing eye gazing. So eye gazing is a very intense and very intimate thing because, right, I think we all feel that when you really look into someone's eyes, you see a lot of depth. And then from there, you place one hand, like I'd place my hand on your heart and you place your hand on my heart. And then we do some few breaths together. And then we would come together and I would just do like a nice third eye kiss. So we bring our two foreheads together, a nice little third eye kiss, just setting some intentions. So that's what I would say is like a first kind of beginning kind of way to start that.
Beautiful. Thank you for that.
Of course. Yeah, my pleasure.
I love it. This is great. What else do you feel is just a really important message for humanity at this time? Just right now for the viewers watching, what might be coming through that you feel would be really important to hear?
So one of the most powerful and easy practices that my Tantra teacher, Dawn Cartwright, who I'll be studying with even more next year, had us do is when you get into partners, and then so you and I would be in partners, and the question is, what am I afraid of in sex? And so then one of us would go first, and I would say, you go first, and I would just say, what are you afraid of in sex? And you would answer, and I go, what are you afraid of in sex? And you would answer. I don't get to have any kind of dialogue or discussion with you about it. I don't get to tell you you're wrong or right. I just keep asking you for 4 minutes, what are you afraid of in sex? And then we switch. And I think that that's really important because what happens is you hear your other partner's stuff going on. Because a lot of times when we engage in sexuality, we just move and we don't talk, and we're just like, here, and we're doing this. And instead of being like, okay, so I know that she is super scared of that she's not going to be skinny enough. And instead of having the guy be like, that's not true, you're not going to, they just have to go, okay, what are you afraid of in sex? And they don't get to make it wrong or right or anything. And they just get to hear me for what is happening. And because of the 4 minutes, it goes deeper and deeper into layers, and you get to meet each other on a different level of really seeing like, oh, interesting, I had no idea that you would ever feel triggered about that, or I had no idea that you wouldn't feel this, you know. And I feel actually in sexuality, it's actually harder for men than it is for women, because with women, it's like, if we don't get wet or we don't, you know, all these different things, it's not a big problem. To whereas like for men, you know, I feel like we just put so much shame and blame and into, you know, being hard at that moment. And if you're not hard, it's this thing and it's wrong and it's shameful and, you know, last long but not too long, make me orgasm. You know, I feel like put a lot more shame on men. And, you know, in Tantra, there is no goal. That's kind of like a thing in Tantra, is that you really try to be goalless. So it isn't like, let's be multi-orgasmic. It's like, cool, that's a cool intention. But if it doesn't show up, we're not attached to it. And with men, there's even thing called soft penetration. So it's where a man doesn't even have his lingam has not taken an erect thing, but it's still in soft. And you find entrance into a female through there. You know, and just offering different practices like that just totally shift the paradigm of what we're so used to in the Western world. And that's what I would offer. I would offer kind of that discussion, you know, of allowing those things.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Super informative. I want to see if anybody that's listening has any questions in this moment. Does anybody want to ask Miss Lily Lucia a question here live? Give it a moment. If you want, you would unmute your mic and go ahead and ask. All right, well, I'll continue then.
I'm sorry, I have a question.
Oh, perfect, we have a question.
Yeah, sorry. I'm wondering what your experience is about when entering into conscious awareness with your partner, with a partner. There can be this sense of being a single consciousness, that you're not two separate people. And that's something so exquisite and truthful about that we're not really divided, different egos, different selves, different bodies. We're actually a single being at some level. And there's something so refreshing and renewing and liberating about recognizing our unity instead of our duality. Could you speak to that, please?
So do you want me to speak about my experience of unity?
You know, something in, I don't know, response or reflection on.
Okay, yeah, for sure.
Receptivity on that subject.
So that is absolutely beautiful. And I think that is a lot of what we are looking for, actually. And I think that's a lot of what Tantra is allowing us to break down the walls and the barriers that we put up. So allowing ourselves to really find that moment of pure connection and oneness with our partner. So I think for me, that's also something that I think is really healing, is that when you come into consciousness and sexuality, right, like all of a sudden that union becomes sacred, right? And it becomes a unison of one kind of energy together. You can even do breath work, you know, to where like when he engages, you can exhale. So I think that's part of the healing, and definitely part of the beautiful practice of Tantra is really submerging yourself into that moment of unity with your partner. And I think that in our Western world and sexuality, what we've been taught, we just don't normally ever feel that, right? Because it's so in the mind and then down the genitals, and really lacks heart and really being there. So I think that is such a beautiful thing to recognize and to see, because that is one of the biggest gifts, is to really feel that your consciousnesses are coming together. And I think that there's also a moment that you can really find and see the divine within your lover, and that's reflected in yourself in a way that you normally wouldn't. You know, so I think that's a little bit of how I have experienced what you're talking about. And I do think is a big healing component of why we would want conscious or sacred relationships, because you're able to, you know, have that experience of that unity, of that one consciousness.
How do you guide your students to learn how to let go with another person into this shared sensitivity of being a single being?
You know, I never actually use that terminology of becoming a single being. So I can't, what I direct is people, like I said, doing that kind of discussion of talk and things like that. So all of a sudden there's depth and there's openness and intimacy. And then I teach them just, you know, about that it should not be, it should be goalless. So even if you want to have a goal of like, you know, let's try to have it so you have a body orgasm and you don't have a release orgasm. That's cool, but not to be attached. And so I think what happens, and also a little bit of my fear would be if I use the term come into a place of one unity, is that all of a sudden it would become a goal, right? So all of a sudden it would be a goal of like, I want to come into one unison with you, and that people, you know, and I think that something like that really actually just blossoms from the experience of being very present with your lover and allowing your own blocks in your own heart and your own walls to open and kind of diminish as your partner's does, right? So then you really have that sense of openness between each other, and then those things will naturally happen.
Great question.
Well, in my experience, it seems as though as long as we have a self-concept of, you know, getting what we want or doing whatever we think we're doing, feeling or sensing we're doing, we're actually doing something. There's a doer, and in meditative parlance, being a doer is to be a separate self. And as long as we're a separate self then we're really not relaxed. We're really not letting go or surrendering into who and what we really are as pure spirit. What would you say to that?
Well, I would say that, you know, sexuality is going to be different because you are engaging with someone. So what I would really say is, you know, for a woman, can you really feel the man's energy, penis, actually in you? And can you feel that radiating through you and your energy coming back down through them? Do you feel that unity? For a man, you know, do you really feel when you engage in her, those walls of her, you know, of her vagina around, and like that energy coming in? Do you feel your energy penetrating and kind of, right, not so much mental, but really be in the now and that experience of having their body and your body in one? So it's not just like, oh, is his penis rubbing against my G-spot where it should be, but really allowing yourself to be fulfilled by that man's energy. So in Tantra, what they kind of say is that man is matter and woman is space. So a woman's supposed to be really open, right? And that's how we allow this thing into us, is because we're space. He is matter as he gets hard. You know, so I would say it's a little, you know, you also have to see that maybe this is a little different than meditation by yourself, where you sit there and come into this consciousness, right? Because it adds a different element with your partner. So maybe you have a little bit different of an experience than you would, right? So we can't be attached also to like what we've had as a practice by ourselves, is what I would say.
Mm-hmm. You know those tantric temples in India where everybody's, I mean, they were so excited about it, they carved it into stone that everybody's making love together. So you have, I've been doing a group consciousness for over 30 years internationally. So when people just notice what they notice together, they go into this ecstasy without even touching each other. They feel like they're making love with each other. And so Tantra used to be is one of the most direct paths to enlightenment, where you recognize that you are this eternal now of awakeness in every cell, molecule, atom of your body. And each person has to learn how to be who they really are as that. And then when they come together, the magnitude of their combined fully embodied consciousness is not so much, I mean, the sexuality of penetration and feeling and being sensitive at every level together, of course, is very, wonderful. But ultimately, the ancient practice of Tantra was one about coming to this place of self-transcendence. Does that factor into teaching Tantra in your experience?
Without a doubt, but I would say, like I said, my company is really about love. So for what you're talking about, I find that that is advanced. That is completely my path and what advanced students are on. But, you know, it really comes down to, for me, just teaching also the basics of heart, right? So it's like a stepping, right? So I don't want to try to all of a sudden be like, you guys, we need to raise the consciousness and you need to be here and have this like awakening and stuff. I really want to just first move people from their root chakra and that very humanistic, biological, just even up into the chakra of the heart, right? Like, how do we even have that? So I would say that definitely plays a part without a doubt, especially when you become, you know, when I have my peers that I study and practice with and things like that, without a doubt, that's where we are, right? And you get orgasmic and we get, you know, even sometimes people have orgasms with white tantra, right, without being touched. So it's definitely a part of it without a doubt. But I would say that you really have to also look at, you know, where is the evolution? So I personally don't always use the term tantra with myself because it is such a sacred, beautiful lineage. And I do really want to honor that. And I don't want to exploit that term. So I personally use the term sacred sexuality a lot more for myself, because that opens me up to explore a lot more things and not feel like I don't have reverence or respect or am honoring the lineage of Tantra super intensely. I use a lot of tantric practices and ideas in my own work. But my own work, I would say, is a lot more to help people just first even come up into a place of love and to reverence and to allowing sexuality in themselves to be something else. And then, like I said, so what you're talking about is definitely right more the advanced level.
Thank you,
the love in my experience is one of total communion with the whole of nature that gave birth to us ultimately. So thank you very much. I really appreciate.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Beautiful practices that you're bringing up and doing in the world. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Let's have another question. I think there's one from Jerry.
Yes, thank you, Lily. I joined when you were talking about the self-pleasure practices, and I see that as a perspective of just coming from a space of more, let's say, just intrinsic motivation than extrinsic motivation, because I know the dating culture and everything is just kind of like, I need someone to fulfill me. Whereas if you can find the sustainable self satisfaction procedures, whatever you call it, then I think the energy will be less desperate, which I sense from a lot of people right now. And even I really appreciate you opening the discussion on Tantra, because many people think it's sexual, and I focus on the word intimacy, which is you're diving deep into someone so you know more about yourself. It's not necessarily have to be sexual, but it's you go deeper than that, than any kind of physical level. And I've experienced that, and I just want to know what sustainable procedures can you share, and to not make it more like the word I'm going to say is masturbation.
Yeah.
You know, but make it open as in, okay, so like it's self-discovery, because you know there's a stigmatism against that. So thanks.
Yeah, of course. So one of the main things that I think is really important about self-pleasure and self-love is that a lot of us see it as a chore that needs to be done because we have this urge, we have this sexuality, and we're like, okay, done, I want to be done. Right? And so part of what I do, because of the healing practices I had to do, was even just take a moment and not look for an end goal, but, you know, place my hand on myself and notice what emotions come up in different spaces, you know, and you can do that as a man as well. Just holding your penis. What comes up? Do you feel shame? Do you feel guilt? Do you just want to get this over? Does it feel super good? You know, because we don't have that discussion. We just go into these norms. So what I would say is that's what my self-love practices have to do more about, is like, without that other partner that we have so much emotion and energy and stuff come up, getting to know your own emotional reactions and self without that person. So for a man, you know, how do you really actually make it that in a woman? How do you make that into a sacred thing? You know what I mean? Does that mean that you see yourself as your own beloved in that moment, that you light a candle, that you have a little more reverence for that time, that you actually don't just go in there for the goal of this one thing to get off and like be done, but maybe you take some time and maybe, you know, you just touch your own self. Maybe you just hold yourself. Maybe you know, just notice any trauma you had or anything like that. So that's what I really offer as a self-love practice, is to actually see it as, you know, so like I was saying about the energy in the circa of a man and a woman, they would, the practice of a self-love energy is actually going to be through your hand. And then the energy comes out and goes back down into touching yourself. So you become your own energy circuit of love. And I think that most of the time, a lot of us really come into a place of, we don't have reverence or don't see self-pleasure as anything sacred or beautiful, but really something that's very kind of gross and demeaning and not right. And there's a lot of shame. So I really ask you to make it into a self-love practice, you know, like love yourself. Like maybe you want to go really slow for a long time, you know, especially for a man, because right in Tantra, we're trying to eventually disassociate ejaculation with orgasm, you know? So maybe it's also just that. And maybe it's also, we're so hard on men. We are so hard on men. And I don't think that there's enough reverence actually also for the penis. You know, we have so much stuff in our society that kind of makes you guys almost feel shameful about it in some way. And so I just also offer like, what would that be like if you actually saw your testicles and your penis as something sacred and a really beautiful light to the world and to your lover and to yourself? You know, maybe that would be really different. Maybe even like breathing into that and breathing into that area, you know? So I think that those are just some of the ways you can offer something a little bit deeper. Maybe for a woman or a man, it's like actually, you know, lighting candles and setting up an atmosphere for yourself that you would with your lover, you know, and self-pleasuring yourself with that, and making it into a practice of that it's not shame or guilt or dirty or wrong, but it's a practice of you really having reverence for yourself and love for yourself and this energy and this life force and this human experience. I don't know if that helps at all, but that's just kind of like some of what I would say is a little bit different of a style of, you know, going about self-pleasure.
Yeah, that definitely helps. Thank you for that clarification. Also, something I would like you to expand on, if you can, the concept of, you said, the ejaculation versus actual orgasm, that distinction, because let's see, the conditioning, this is what I was raised with, what I had to deal with is, okay, so the whole concept of masturbation, self-pleasure is distorted with pornography,
right?
Unproductive imagination. That's that's what's available. So that's what everyone is using. And I guess this bridges into Black Tantra, which involves, you know, constantly from the Gnostic approach, like spilling the semen and all different approaches with that, which is reducing energy. How do we redirect our attention to what's sustainable from what's available and accessible right now? Because this is, I see, to be the biggest challenge. And getting away from the animalistic approach to more the spiritual, grounded, hey, let's connect, intimacy.
So that's why I said my company is about love. And while I love the idea of finding, you know, all these really high, super evolved modes, that's why I want to bring back love, right? Like, I just want us to get in touch with our humanity. So I think just practices of even two people looking at each other and being like, what are you scared of in sex? And having that discussion and just seeing each other, you know, two things of just even sensuality, of actually intentionally touching, you know, and like also engaging your own, being like, where are my wounds around my sexuality, you know, and just things like that, and offering stuff like soft penetration to the world, you know, like most people are just like, what? Like, you would penetrate without a heart? What? You know, and we'd be like, and want to shame dudes, you know what I mean? Instead of offering like, how could soft sex be healing for us? You know, and so I think just even having these discussions of different ways that sexuality can be, because what I noticed in my own world was that it was either porn or Puritanism, and there was nowhere in between. Either I was going to go get fucked by some dude and walk away and you shame, you know what I mean? And totally be this animalistic, definitely no heart, you're not getting anything. Or I felt like I had to be in this other side that was like, I'm just not going to be sexual, right? So I think we have to have a discussion of how do we just move into love. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Jerry.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you, Lily. I'm going to start wrapping it up. Is there one last question before we close today? And Okay, and then Lily, I just want for people watching today, how can they get in touch with you? Where can they learn about your course? And if they want to even maybe have a coaching session with you, let us know a little bit more how we can find you.
Yeah, so all of my stuff is either under my name, Lily Lucia, or Unstoppable Goddess. And I am open to all questions, and I'm really here to serve. And so just even having all your questions helps me, because then I can take those questions and answer them for the greater whole and give them to the world. So I have my course, I have one-on-one like coaching, as well as like I do have like retreats coming up in smaller courses, because it is really important to me to heal and help just open that discussion. I'm not going to do this alone. It's all of us, and each one of us showing up more in love helps. So that's just what I would say. If you guys have any more questions or comments or things that you don't feel, I know that also a lot of people don't publicly love to talk about this stuff because it's scary, right? I mean, it's like kind of putting yourself on blast with sometimes personal issues. So if you want to also just write me a message about anything you guys have questions about, I really am just here to serve. It really comes from a space of love. This was my place of my greatest transformation, and allowing myself back into love and feeling myself and being loved and loving another. And that's what I want for the world. Because when my heart healed from that, I got to heal and actually own a lot of my other world, like I said. So that's where I'm at, unstoppablegoddess.com. I'm on Facebook on all sorts of stuff, and I just love and adore you guys all. And I'm just really here to be this channel and, just help everyone have pleasure and bliss and love and intimacy in their lives, so you guys get to enjoy one of the most gushy, yummy experiences ever.
Thank you, Miss Lily Lucia, Unstoppable Goddess, Sacred Sexuality Empowerment Coach. It's been such an honor. Thank you for being here with us on Lovepreneur World, where we really help people understand love for the world in bigger ways and deeper ways and in applicable ways. And I really appreciate you. So let's just...
Thank you so much, sister, for having me on.
If anybody
I thank all you guys for your time and for your energy and your space, and just, allowing me to lead and listening to me. And I just show you, and thank you guys for showing up in the world and being such amazing people.
Oh, I adore you. Let's close with a big yum today. We often do an om, and let's just get into that heart chakra. And will you lead us in a closing yum?
Sure. So
everyone, go ahead and unmute your mics so we can hear each other.
Cool. So we'll take a big, huge breath in, and then we'll do it. So you guys ready to take a big, huge inhale? Yeah. It's almost the same as an om, except for that beginning syllable.
Oh, beautiful. Have a beautiful day, everyone.
Oh, thank you guys so much. Namaste to you all.
Much love.
Yum.
Yum.
Yum.